Yo, no maniacs, super no maniacs, and every one of you Bear fans out there, welcome to the show. We're going to call this new segment. This is a new segment. We're going to call it Feed the Bears. And who are the Bears? You guys are the Bears, and we're going to feed you. We're going to give you more and more of this daily content as much as we can. You know what I mean? We're gonna really turn up the volume on the amount of content that we're turning out. And we're going to have conversations about different things that I feel like I have a pretty good pulse for what the fans are thinking about and what they want to talk about. And I'm going to tap into that just a little bit and give you guys some more content, some more, consistent content. We do some pretty good shows, early in the week, middle of the week, late week, talk about a lot of good stuff. We do long shows, but that still isn't enough, man, because I think you guys are yearning for more and more content, because I know how it was on the other side of not being a podcaster, looking for the content. And so I get it. And I believe that the more and more content that's out there, the more and more it kind of, makes people feel good, because people want to talk about this stuff all year long. And I get it. I'm the same way. And this is just my commitment to all the people that support us. I'm gonna put out more content for you guys, man. Every time I can think about something that we could probably sit around and talk about and have a good conversation about, I'm gonna start making videos and letting people know how I think about it, without the analytics and numbers. The hell with all that. I know what the eye evaluation tells me, and that's what we're gonna talk about more times than not on the show. But before we get started, man, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button and share with your people, man. Before we get started, we're trying to get these subs on up, so make sure you do that before we get started. But let me get right on off into it. So, wide receiver Tyler Scott, he is another interesting piece that we have on the roster. Yesterday, we talked about Zach Pickens and what's to become of him with this new defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen, and what would he think about the evaluation part of it, and what he can do to kind of elevate Zach's game. We had a good conversation about that, some pretty good feedback from the supporters. And I want to talk about this guy right here, Tyler Scott. Very, very exciting piece that we brought into the team a couple of years ago. But very, very quickly, it was apparent that, either. Now, I'm saying this because one thing about us is outside on the perimeter, we only get to see as much as we get to see. We might get some training camp highlight videos. We might get some, we're gonna see some preseason work, and we're gonna see the regular season work as well. But all the magic tends to happen in practice, and most of that we don't get to see. Matter of fact, none of that we get to see unless it's training camp. But throughout the year, there are things that go on on a football team, and we just aren't privy to see it. So our evaluation of what we think of Tyler Scott is basically going to be on the perimeter. But I'm going to tell you what I think, because it goes back to the tape that I watched before we got him here. I watched that whole class of receivers. I know them backwards and forwards. Tyler Scott's one. And so when we picked him, I was extremely happy. I was just like, that's the guy we need to kind of take the top off the defense. And so let me get right on into that part of it. And so here, let me give you guys what I think Tyler Scott is. Tyler Scott's 5'11", 185. He's playing at that weight right now. Came in about that weight. He's pretty built for a guy's size. He's not a really, really strong guy. So he's not really what you would classify as an X or a Z receiver. He's basically built to play in the slot. What do you need to be able to play in the slot? Number one, you need to be pretty fluid around the hips. And Tyler Scott is not. That's one thing that I noticed about him when he was at Cincinnati, is he was pretty tight around the hips. So what came off to me are the obvious. He's got that track speed to take the top off the defense. Check. Put a check next to that box. The kind of routes that they typically served him in Cincinnati were pretty much seam routes, go routes, a lot of comebacks, a couple of jet sweeps and things like that. They really emphasize using him for his speed. The comeback routes were pretty good. It's just 7 yards to 8 yards. Down, sharp comeback, hit him with the ball and let him run after the catch. That's pretty much what that is. But everything else is pretty much down the field, over the top of the defense, on post seams, those kind of go route kinds of concepts. And they were pretty good at it. And he was, I would just say, less than consistent with his hands then. And, one thing I didn't notice about Tyler Scott is they didn't work him in the middle of the field. And so for a slot receiver, he played X or Z when he was in Cincinnati. Right away, he came here and they primarily wanted to work him in the slot. And it was fairly obvious from the outside looking in that he wasn't consistent with his hands. He was inconsistent with his hands, and they wanted to use him as a special teams guy. Very inconsistent with his hands, and I think that's hurt him. I think that's hurt him big time. And so let me talk about the slot receiver position in particular. What you're going to have to be is pretty damn good in the NFL and work in the middle of the field. And I don't see any evidence. I didn't see it on tape when he was in Cincinnati, and I haven't seen it so far since he's been in Chicago. Any evidence that would prove to me that Tyler Scott is capable of working the middle of the defense, because that's what you need to do. You need to be, as a good quality slot receiver, you need to be able to break down and find holes and zones and just be able to work yourself open, get separation, and give the quarterback a target to throw the ball to, because it's just very little time for quarterbacks to get the ball out. And I just don't see any evidence of that. Here's my thing about it. When I think about Tyler Scott in relation to Ben Johnson and the offense that he's going to bring here, have no idea what kind of concepts he's going to use. All I have is the tape of what he did in Detroit. And so here's what I think of Tyler Scott. Here's a really good comparison to Tyler Scott right here. I'm about to pull a guy up right now. Give me a second. So here's Khif Raymond, gadget guy, slot receiver, return specialist, a guy that was heavily used in Detroit in Ben Johnson's offense. Almost identical measurements of Tyler Scott, 5'8", 180 pounds, a versatile slot receiver and return specialist. This is what I can basically conceptualize in my mind of how Ben Johnson is going to think about, Tyler Scott and what he can do with him. I believe he's going to come in here and give Tyler Scott every bit of the opportunity to try and be Khif Raymond. I think, in my opinion, if I were Ben Johnson, I'd come in here right away and have a conversation with Tyler Scott and say, you know what? Everything that I saw on tape, thrown in the trash. What we're going to do with you here is I want you to watch some of this Khif Raymond tape. Jet sweeps, returns, work in the middle in the slot, and kind of get a conceptualized idea of what he would ask Tyler Scott to do. That's what I would do if I was Ben Johnson. Just give him an example of what we're going to ask you to do. And this is the best comparison. I could throw out Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I don't think Tyler Scott is like Amon-Ra is very strong. And he could play X, Y, slot. It doesn't matter because he's strong like that. Tyler Scott's not built quite that way. And so I just imagine Khif Raymond. So you got a 5'8", 180-pound guy next to a 5'11", 185-pound guy. It's almost the same exact guy. And so those are my thoughts. Here's the thing, another thing about Tyler Scott to mention. Why you don't want to play him at X or Z receiver, because those X and Z receivers in Detroit did a whole lot of downfield blocking. And we've seen a version of Tyler Scott trying to do that, be that downfield blocking receiver at X or Z here with Flus as a head coach, and it didn't go very well. And he was just outmatched every time. You know what I mean? And it was he was like a fish out of water with that kind of assignment. And so what I'm going to say is, one more time, is I think there's still meat on the bone with Tyler Scott. I'm going to take this image down. I think there's still meat on the bone with Tyler Scott, and I'm not ready to quite give up on him. And, I think it's about the evaluation process with I'm pretty sure Ryan Poles sat down with these guys and already kind of sussed this out about what, the future might look like with these guys and what kind of roles can you see these guys playing, Tyler Scott being one guy in particular. I just don't, that kind of speed is hard to come by. I mean, the guy has legit track speed, and that kind of thing, is threatening. So I do think Tyler Scott can find a role on this team, but I think we'll find out pretty early in this camp whether or not Tyler Scott can sustain that role that I think is going to be handed to him. It's going to be kind of his role to win or lose, in my opinion. But I'm just going to give you guys some advice. As creative as Ben Johnson is, and the kind of mind and the concepts that he comes up with, I could see him seeing Tyler Scott as the kind of piece that, okay, let me just use my head and try to really activate him, get him some confidence, call some plays that I know that he can execute and give him confidence. Because I believe that might be the biggest thing with Tyler Scott. Same thing with Velus Jones. I think at some point, you know, the coaches were down on them and they lost confidence in themselves. And once that, you know, that game that people play with themselves from the neck up in the head, you know, once that kind of takes place, you gotta kind of start from scratch and kind of figure out how, you know, I can get out of my own head and just execute and play football, the game I've been growing up playing all my life, and execute and be a good football player. And I think that's where Tyler Scott's got to be. So hopefully, you know, Antoine Randall L. and those guys around him can get with him and get him some good solid work and get him where he needs to be. And I really think Tyler Scott's got a lot of meat left on the bone, and I just wouldn't be so quick to give up on him yet. And I know we want to talk about a lot of slot receivers in the draft, and we will definitely be talking about a lot of those guys. But don't give up on Tyler Scott yet. I think he's still got some proving left to do. He's only 2 years in the league, and he's got a lot of room to grow, man. So I would be patient. I'm going to be patient and see what happens, man. Before we get out of here, I just wanted to mention, don't forget to come check us out on some Extra Sauce tonight at 8 p.m. Central. We'll have a pretty live show. We're going to do a lot of talking about, you know, things that we can do in free agency, you know, trade. I had an interesting I went to Chat GPT and I put in something. You guys are going to be shocked at what I seen when I put this information in Chat GPT. It's kind of a comparison kind of trade situation that I put up. I ain't going to tell you too much. I'm going to wait till you guys come into the show, and hopefully you guys will remind me so I don't forget to actually put that up so you guys can see it. But look out for some Extra Sauce tonight at 8 p.m. Central. And before we get out of here, guys, don't forget to leave a comment behind the video, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you have not. Hit the like, hit the share it with your people, and let everybody know what we do over here. But we got to leave you with these famous words. If you can think it and you can see it, people, there's no reason in the world why you cannot absolutely manifest it. Do not, I repeat, do not be a prisoner of your own mind. But with that being said, I am